Ukraine waited for Russian commanders to relax, then collapsed the bridge from below in under 9 seconds.
At 5:10 a.m., a 3-mile Russian convoy rolls onto the bridge, more than 500 vehicles, hauling ammunition for 15,000 troops, convinced it is untouchable. Confidence comes from a Pantsir S, one valued at $13 million, and a Nebo M radar worth $110 million, both scanning the sky for threats that never appear. What they don't see is below. Clamped to cold steel under the span, 15 Kajak Reboth FPV drones, each costing $700, lie motionless like rusted tools. They need only a 1 millisecond encrypted spark to awaken, shed silence, and become autonomous weapons. Above, engines roar. Below, the trap waits already set beneath their boots. How are you today? Comment 1 if you're okay, 2 if you're feeling positive, 3 if you want to share. The first warning arrived quietly, almost politely. At the forest edge near the bridge, a Russian reconnaissance team detected a faint, irregular signal bleeding up from beneath the steel span. It didn't match any known drone profile. No engine noise. No thermal spike. Just a thin electronic whisper where there should have been nothing. Curious, more than alarmed, the squad leader ordered a test. One soldier raised his AK-74M, worth $1,000, and fired a short burst into the bridge's support beam. Bullets struck steel, throwing sparks across the river like brief fireworks. No explosion followed, no alarms sounded. The bridge remained calm. That calm shattered seconds later. 2 Ukrainian decoy drones erupted from the water's surface, tearing through the mist with violent speed. Their sudden appearance forced the Russian scouts to stagger backward, radios crackling as overlapping voices demanded explanations. Reflexive fire followed, wild, urgent, but the drones were already skimming low, vanishing into reeds and shadow before a clean shot could land. Then came the eye in the sky. A militarized Mavic 3 tons, valued at $11,000, slid into view just meters above the river. Its sensors drank in everything: the scouts' positions, their firing angles, the confusion spreading through the unit. The Russians responded with brute force. A gunner swung a PKM machine gun costing $4,500, sending a stream of tracers ripping across the water. The drone dipped, banked hard, and escaped beneath the bridge, its footage secured. For the Russian team, the encounter felt trivial. A few sparks, a few drones, another strange glitch near an old bridge. They logged it as minor interference and resumed their watch, convinced nothing serious had happened. Miles away, Ukrainian AI systems reached the opposite conclusion. The response had been disorganized. No heavy assets deployed, no air defenses queued. The bridge remained open, quiet, and predictable. To Russia, it was noise. To Ukraine, it was confirmation. The window was open. How does your country view the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Please leave a comment below. The investigation phase began long before the convoy sensed danger. From miles upstream, Ukraine released a Silent 3-2 recon drone, a stealth platform engineered to fly inches above the waterline. Its matte skin swallowing light and radar alike, valued at $28,000. The drone's mission was not to attack, but to listen. As it skimmed toward the bridge, microsensors activated, reading vibrations transmitted through steel and concrete. Every axle passing overhead sent a pulse. Every overloaded truck added weight to the rhythm. To the Silent 3-2, the bridge was speaking, and it was telling everything. Russia reacted faster than expected. A Spetsnaz fire team concealed near the shoreline spotted a faint distortion in their optics. The team leader raised a VSS Vintores rifle worth $4,000 and fired a controlled burst. The rounds cut the air silently, splashing water just behind the drone. But the Silent 3-2 had already adjusted, banking sharply and slipping behind a massive concrete pylon. The shots found nothing. Recognizing the target's agility, the Spetsnaz team escalated. They called in aerial support, and minutes later, the mechanical hum of an Orlan 10 reconnaissance drone, valued at $100,000, rolled across the river valley. The Orlan locked onto the Silent 3-2's faint thermal wake and began a tightening pursuit, trying to force it upward into open space. Ukraine anticipated this moment. As the Orlan closed in, the Silent 3-2 released an optical decoy no larger than a fist, costing $3,000 that scattered synthetic light and heat across the river surface. To the Orlan's sensors, the single drone fractured into multiple false targets. Its tracking system hesitated, corrected, then lost coherence entirely. The Orlan drifted off course, its operators fighting lag and confusion as the real drone vanished beneath the bridge's shadow. Meanwhile, the Silent 3-2 completed its run undisturbed. It mapped the bridge's resonant frequency, identified stress points along the central span, and pinpointed the precise location where ammunition trucks were clustered too tightly together. Data streamed back to Ukrainian command systems, where AI models cross-referenced weight distribution, structural fatigue, and blast amplification. The verdict was immediate and unanimous. The bridge was vulnerable, the convoy was perfectly positioned, and the door to the kill zone was now fully open. If you watched our last video, you already know this convoy wasn't moving blindly. What you're about to see explains why that mattered. The revelation didn't arrive like a scream, it arrived like a soft click. A quiet system booting up inside a Russian command truck halfway across the Dnipro Bridge. As the convoy rumbled onto the steel span, one officer ordered a precautionary sweep. He powered up the RB-341 volts, Lear-3 electronic warfare system valued at $15 million, expecting to drown any suspicious signal beneath a wall of Russian jamming. For 3 seconds, the jammer hummed normally, rotating its antenna toward the river below. In the 4th second, everything went wrong. From beneath the bridge, 2 Ukrainian drones erupted upward with the precision of scalpels. They weren't here to kill, they were here to cut. Moving like blades skimming across glass, they surged toward the Lear-3 and triggered their EMP capsules, each costing $8,000. A pulse of blue-white energy washed over the antenna array. Screens inside the EW vehicle blinked once, twice, then died completely, plunging the truck into electronic darkness. Russian guards reacted on instinct. The escort team unleashed disciplined suppressive fire from an AGS-17 automatic grenade launcher worth $5,000, detonating bursts over the water. Explosions rippled across the river surface, sending geysers of spray into the air. But the drones were already gone, slipping back into the underside of the bridge like ghosts that refused to be pinned down. Inside the Russian column, commanders shouted conflicting orders. Some demanded radar sweeps. Others called for drones to be launched. A few insisted the Lear-3 was simply malfunctioning. But the truth settled over them like a cold wind. Their fortress convoy wasn't being stalked from the sky. No Ukrainian missile, no jet, no long-range artillery had fired a shot. There were no contrails, no shadows overhead, no signatures on Nebo M. The threat was coming from below. One junior lieutenant stared over the railing, eyes narrowing as he scanned the fog curling beneath the bridge. He didn't see anything, not movement, not metal, not light. But he felt it. The growing unease. The prickling sense that they had walked into something designed specifically for them. In the command net, silence took over. The kind of silence that only appears when soldiers understand they are no longer in control of the battlefield. Across the river, in a hidden Ukrainian command vehicle, AI indicators flashed green, dozens of confirmation codes scrolling like a heartbeat on a screen. The trap was functioning exactly as intended. The Russians had finally realized the truth. The attack wasn't descending from the heavens. The real weapon, the real danger, was waiting directly beneath their feet. The order came through as a silent pulse. No voice, no human hesitation, just a one-bit command: stand by. Beneath the Dnipro Bridge, the Ukrainian drones shifted from dormancy to readiness, their micro-servos humming faintly as 3 attack cells aligned into position. Cell 1 angled toward the tightly packed Russian ammunition trucks. Cell 2 oriented for the vulnerable fuel tankers. Cell 3 locked onto the command and control vehicles anchoring the convoy's rear. Each drone held its place with machine patience, waiting for the final trigger. On the bridge deck above, The Russian convoy lumbered forward until physics, neglect, and economics delivered Ukraine the opening it had predicted days earlier. The Russian army's infamous cheap Kamaz tires, worth $350 per wheel, finally gave out under the strain of weight, heat, and distance. One truck wobbled, another hissed, a third shuddered to a halt. In less than 30 seconds, the massive convoy compressed into a snarl of stalled engines and blocked lanes. Exactly where Ukraine's AI said it would. Exactly when Ukraine needed it. Russian officers barked orders over radios, but the airwaves were jammed with static and panicked voices. Drivers stepped out to inspect the damage, not realizing they were stepping into the heart of an invisible kill zone. Inside a nearby Panzer S, one air defense system valued at $15 million, a junior operator spotted a flicker on his display, a thin line of noise sliding across the waveform. He interpreted it as a drone. His captain dismissed it as river clutter. But fear trumps rank, and the young operator switched to active search mode. The radar swept downward. For a single instant, just long enough, he caught a faint target return. He fired. The missile screamed from its launch tube and smashed into a Ukrainian decoy that cost $50 to manufacture. The explosion blossomed beneath the bridge, useless but deafening. And it did the one thing Ukraine needed it to do. It woke the entire Russian convoy. Alarms blared. Radio traffic erupted. Soldiers scrambled to firing positions. Trucks slammed on their brakes, locking the convoy into a frozen metal maze. The Russians had no idea what they were shooting at, no idea where the threat was coming from, but they now believed, with full certainty, that the attack had begun. They were half right. The attack hadn't begun yet. But the stage was finally perfectly set. That data streamed directly to an S-400 launcher whose operators didn't hesitate. A missile, each one worth $2.5 million, roared skyward before tipping over and diving at Mach 12, a hypersonic hammer built to swat fighter jets out of the sky. Against a handful of $600 drones, it should have been overkill. It should have been absolute. It wasn't. As the missile closed in, the lead Ukrainian drone executed Protocol Omega-7, a last-ditch maneuver never meant for human hands. A hatch snapped open, releasing a $27,000 ALE-50 tow decoy trailing on a 100-foot fiber optic line. The decoy lit up the missile seeker like a supernova, amplifying the radar echo 100-fold. To the S-400, the tiny drone instantly vanished. The decoy became the only target in the world. The missile twisted violently, corrected, then slammed into the false echo in a fireball that lit the riverbank like sunrise. A $3 million weapon destroyed by a fishing line lure. Inside the Russian convoy, confusion spiked into chaos. Inside the Ukrainian command van, a single icon turned green. In the space of one heartbeat, the final command flashed across the screen: execute. The results came in a single violent heartbeat. As soon as the execution command fired across the network, all 11 Ukrainian drones surged upward from beneath the bridge. They didn't aim for trucks or soldiers, they aimed for the spine of the structure itself. Each drone slammed into a designated impact point and detonated a $1,000 shaped charge, punching perfect holes through reinforced concrete. Then came the real weapon. A programmed one. 1 second delay allowed the shock waves to merge inside the narrow space between the river and the bridge deck, forming a trapped pressure chamber. The blast folded in on itself, amplifying upward to nearly 5,000 psi, a force no column on Earth is designed to withstand. When the bridge finally collapsed into the burning river, the shockwave rolled across both banks, sending families sprinting along the shoreline in search of missing loved ones. For once, Russian and Ukrainian rescue crews worked side by side, pulling civilians away from falling debris and toxic smoke drifting over the water. In nearby villages, children wrapped scarves around their ears, trembling at the echoes still rumbling through the valley. And as the fire dimmed, and the first light touched the shattered span, one question lingered over the quiet ruins. In a war shaped by AI and cheap drones, who truly bears the cost the army's fighting? Or the people trapped between their lines?
Ukraine waited for Russian armor to bunch up, then ignited the minefield fortress in 9 seconds.
5:14 a.m. The air stank of burnt coal and gunpowder. Engines screamed through the northern industrial maze as the first explosions tore through the haze. Sparks flashed against rusted steel walls, mingling with machine gun bursts echoing from every direction. 30 T-90M tanks, each worth about $4 million, plunged into the inferno while 200 FPV drones, barely $200 apiece, dived from the sky like a swarm of metallic hornets. Bullets sliced through smoke. Bombs detonated across the factory roofs, sending waves of fire rolling for miles. Within minutes, the zone turned into a mechanical hellsteel. Smoke and lightning fused into one chaotic symphony. The first sparks reflected off the shattered chimneys, the prologue to days unlike any battle before. And as the smoke cleared, one question lingered. Was this just a test, or the beginning of something far greater? The first sign came like a held breath. Security cameras around the plant blinked out in unison. Black screens, then a choke message on the command network. Teams exchanged quick, clipped looks. Recon drones above began pinging unusual flight tracks. Heat dots where none should be. The question at command was blunt. Decoy or the main strike? Fragmentary bits snapped into alignment. Radios choked, GPS feeds jittered, and a static artillery cluster at the rear showed unexpected motion. 2 Javelin teams moved up, and battery elements shifted into firing positions. Reports indicated at least one NLAW emplacement guarding a supply corridor, and an M777 155mm howitzer staged a few miles back as a reserve gun. Tension tightened. Recon operators fed their video into a processing stack. Coordinates, timestamps, and movement vectors lit up heat maps. Red dots jumped on the display, multiple potential targets inside the plant, approach lanes showing mine-like signatures. Everything pointed to a deliberate plan, not a haphazard raid. Someone muttered, "The cover plan, black out the guns, fake the lines, then the real force rushes in while crews are counting kit." The answer hid in small details. Command links blinded just as mechanized columns altered course. Another report came through. Possible anti-drone jammers spotted on the outskirts. Each captured signal is not an ending, but a gateway opening to the next sequence. Recon drone feeds pour into the command hub like a river of data. Thermal imagery, flight tracks, and timestamps. Every coordinate is layered onto a GIS map. Approach lanes circled in red. An analyst amplifies the smallest signals. Track velocity, bearing shifts, a repeating pattern over 20 minutes. Within minutes, they produce a detailed heat map, identifying approach routes over a mile long and choke points only a few hundred feet across ideal locations for mines and ambushes. The SIGINT team logs anomalies. GPS interference at 2 outskirts points, likely from a mobile jammer. Radio chatter fragments into short bursts, and some command channels hop to backup frequencies. RF specialists run spectral analysis, geolocating emitters within roughly a half-mile radius. Findings point to dedicated jamming gear, a factor that instantly shifts countermeasures, hardened comms, rerouting critical links over reserve fiber, and forcing drones to switch to LOS tethering where possible. It's not just sensors. Open source intel gets folded in. Civilian reports of unusual truck convoys, AIS traces showing rerouted shipments, and a local source uploading a short clip of troops moving toward a depot. These fragments are stitched with high-resolution commercial satellite imagery to confirm cover structures and an abandoned cold storage yard. Everything is concatenated into a timeline that lets commanders trace enemy action sequences over a few-hour window. Analysts run predictive models to simulate outcomes. If the armored column moves down axis A, minefields at point X will trigger within 2 minutes. Shift to axis B and artillery can engage within 3 to 5 minutes. Simulations let them prioritize objectives, securing supply corridors, sealing escape routes, and staging reserve guns 2 to 3 miles out for overwatch. Decisions now rest on probabilities, not gut calls. With maps, RF spectra, open sources, and simulations merged into a single operational picture. Command orders, lock feeds into a secure stream, move Javelin teams to Point Alpha, and task 2 FPV strike elements for precision hits. Prepare. When the enemy slips into the narrow corridor, artillery concentrates fire, the Javelin team locks the target, and FPV drones slip through blind spots to disable the vehicle's electro-optic systems. This is the pivot from collection to execution. See next. Hidden Truth Revealed, where the plan's contour will be exposed. As morning haze peeled back, a chain of clues came into view. A narrow drainage lane into the cold storage yard, fresh soil turned over signs of careful preparation. A medium-sized UAV cruised above, its camera sweeping every roofline. Imagery exposed hiding pockets for mechanized forces, and a container wall used as camouflage. On the map, a red dot blinked, the coordinates of a cluster of 3 D-printed anti-tank mines, covertly emplaced and waiting for a heavy vehicle to roll over them. It was no longer theory, a trap had been set. From a dark corner of the map, a person appeared. The forward defense commander someone referenced in earlier internal briefs. He did not stand. He scanned the heat maps with a calm stare, pointing to a choke lane only a few hundred feet across. Post the Leopard 2 for overwatch at 2 to 3 mile standoff. Short, firm command. Units obeyed, shifting heavy armor into reserve positions, while UAVs maintained a continuous reconnaissance ring. Digging into open source and RF traces, the intel cell painted a complex picture. Supply trucks funneled into a seemingly secure corridor that had been pre-designated. Narrow side lanes, only a few meters wide, funneled straight to the 3D printed mine emplacements. UAVs kept logging, movement trailers shifting speed, formations tightening near the marked points. It wasn't random. It was a calculated sequence designed to strip the enemy of maneuver space. Behind the scenes, units synchronized like clockwork. A Leopard 2 inches reserve, Javelin teams posted on 2 blocking axes, 2 FPV strike elements primed. Artillery sat 2 to 3 miles back, ready to compress formations if targets entered kill zones. When triggered, the sequence was clear. UAV verifies the target, mines activate, Leopard 2 seals the withdrawal lane, Javelins neutralize remaining mobility, and artillery suppresses supporting elements. It was all pre-calculated, each move measured in minutes and probabilities. This revelation shifted the game. Attackers now knew their moves were watched and that safe egress lanes were scarce. There would be no quick victory here. Only decisive moments where low-cost tech like UAVs could overturn the edge of expensive hardware. As the last pieces snapped into place, the commander issued a short order. "Prepare, we won't let them withdraw." The voice echoed through the hub, and all eyes turned to the next phase, the counterstrike. The command hub standardized the play. Teams emplaced 3D printed anti-tank mines across choke lanes, only a few hundred feet wide, ready for rolling T-90 MIS plays. FPV strike elements launched in 2 waves, each carrying small explosive payloads to degrade turret optics. Man-pads and mobile air defense teams took high ground, covering the airspace within roughly 1 mile. Everything was set on a razor-sharp timetable measured in minutes, not hours, to maximize the kill zone effect. 2 mobile artillery pieces pulled back to positions 2 to 3 miles out, loading fire missions keyed to UAV feeds. A Leopard 2 inches reserve shifted into overwatch to seal withdrawal lanes. Javelin teams locked firing arcs while NLAW crews awaited at rear approaches. All elements linked via secure data links, artillery, FPVs, manpads, and minefields acting as a single integrated system. FPVs performed optical denial runs, striking turret optics to blind crews and open windows for ATGMs. Once a T-90M rolled onto a 3D mine, it lost mobility almost instantly. A heavy chunk of metal became a stationary target. Artillery compressed supporting elements with high explosive airbursts around the lane to keep reinforcements from closing the gap. With the column halted, the Leopard 2 moved up to hold the withdrawal route, forming a mobile barrier within a few hundred yards. Support elements cleared lanes for EOD teams to assess and neutralize mines. Recon continued to stream live video, refining artillery fires and cueing additional FPV strikes on exposed weak points. Within an hour, the tempo shifted. Russian maneuvering collapsed, supply lanes clogged, and morale frayed. The mix of low-cost tech FPVs and 3D mines integrated with heavy assets like the Leopard 2 and mobile artillery demonstrated how synchronized tactics can shatter even large mechanized thrusts. As the armored column stalled, the response came fast. Attack helicopters screamed in, rotors shredding the morning air. Warplanes from standoff launched glide bombs, precision-seeking munitions that rode the skyline, slamming into factory roofs and trying to break the encirclement. Explosions ripped through the industrial sprawl, shrapnel sprayed, and a wall of fire smeared across the ground. In minutes, the air turned from quiet to a convulsive blast zone, forcing defenders to shift from defense to immediate countermeasures. Manpads and mobile air defenses fired back, while artillery threw up high-explosive airbursts to deny airspace. FPV drones pressed like living rounds, harrying helicopter optics and targeting fire control. Leopard 2 seconds, and Bradley fighting vehicles maneuvered for cover amid the debris and smoke. Javelin teams targeted helicopters when they dipped low. The battle space compressed air and ground collided. Every maneuver was contested and costly. Glide strikes turned the plant into a collapsing maze. Torn roofs, jammed bay doors, supply corridors sealed by warped steel. Artillery answered with precise counter-battery and suppression fires aimed at air operating points and staging areas, trying to blunt the air support. UAV feeds quickly mapped false safe zones and highlighted the remaining egress lanes that still might be usable. Within a few hundred yards, pitched clashes erupted. Crews dismounted from vehicles, lobbing grenades, and fighting for every scrap of cover. FPVs dove through the smoke to blind optics, while 3D mines robbed remaining armor of mobility. Shouts, crackling radio, and the groan of crushed metal formed a chaotic rhythmic chorus where planning met raw instinct. As the smoke banked down, the picture was blunt. Portions of the column neutralized, supply nodes wrecked, and air support forced to withdraw from the hot zone. Losses in morale and materiel were stark. Defenders held the industrial complex, but at the cost of shattered routes and ruined warehouses. This clash did not end in a resounding victory. It ended as a brutal turning point, proving the sky could erupt, but the ground would still decide the outcome. Supply corridors around the coking plant lay severed. Warehouses and supply ramps were left as twisted metal and broken concrete. Recon continued to monitor residual movement, while counter-battery radars locked and geolocated enemy firing points with precision. HIMARS units were moved to safe standoff positions a few miles out, poised to deliver rocket barrages on confirmed staging areas, further disrupting any attempts at reorganization. Attacking forces saw mobility crippled, numerous armored vehicles immobilized, tracks mangled, drivetrains disabled by 3D printed mines. EOD and recovery teams commenced salvage operations, cataloging damage and stripping components for logistic return. At the same time, electronic warfare trucks were deployed to dominate the spectrum, jamming attempts at long-range coordination and sealing off easy paths for a coherent regroup. Losing sanctuary, severed supply lines, and persistent fire pressure dramatically slowed the offensive tempo. Commanders had to weigh the manpower and materiel costs to reopen logistics routes, a choice expensive in both time and resources. The effect shifted the operational burden from rapid advance to defensive consolidation. The industrial zone, once a strategic prize, became a sustained pressure point. Defenders used the collected picture to establish no-go zones, cue precision artillery and HIMARS strikes at staging nodes. Manpads and mobile air defenses held the airspace while Leopard 2 seconds, and Bradley's maintained reserve posture to blunt any penetration attempts. Concurrently, humanitarian corridors were opened. Secure routes to move civilians and protect critical infrastructure became operational priorities. In the long run, the northern Avdiivka fight underscored a new doctrine. Expensive hardware alone will not guarantee success without organic reconnaissance, EW resilience, and low-cost force multipliers like FPVs. Brigades will need to augment EOD capacity, harden comms against jamming, and reshape logistics to tolerate equipment attrition. These lessons will be folded into operational playbooks for both sides and any actor confronting the drone era. As the smoke settled, the northern coking plant of Avdiivka stood as nothing but a frame of scorched steel mixed with diesel-stained mud. The faint hum of UAVs still lingered above, scanning for leftover heat signatures. Roads once thundered with tracks now bore deep scars, witnesses to the clash between human endurance and engineered precision. Both sides remained silent, understanding there were no true victors here, only the price paid in steel, smoke, and conviction. Hundreds of local workers lost their jobs. Power and water lines were cut. The air still thick with burnt metal carried for miles. Rescue crews moved in, attempting to recover hazardous materials and restore the power grid. Meanwhile, defense analysts began to question whether heavy tanks still have a place in a world where a cheap drone can erase a $4 million war machine. The Avdiivka fight proved that adaptability outweighs sheer numbers. Ukrainian commanders embraced the value of intelligent defense networks, while Russian planners were forced to rethink armored assault doctrine. The world has entered an age where a single control stick can turn the tide, where every drone carries a silent warning that inexpensive technology might be the most powerful weapon of all. Amid the ashes, a question lingers. How much technology is enough, and how much humanity is too much? Neither side wants to see another industrial complex turned into a graveyard of machines. Yet history seldom stays quiet for long. Every battlefield like Avdiivka serves as a reminder that the future of war won't be shaped by weapons, but by those who choose when to use them. If you believe technology will forever redefine the nature of warfare, hit like and subscribe to stay with us for the next analysis. Every bit of your support helps us keep telling these real stories where humans and machines collide, and history is rewritten through the sound of engines and spinning rotors. Sparks. The BPM-97 stalled. The Lord Gunner dove for cover, and within 15 seconds, the patrol grid cracked open. In the silence that followed, the Leleka finally captured what Ukraine needed most. A fleeting radar anomaly, a blind gap lasting 0.8 seconds. Small, fragile, almost unreal, but just long enough for a single drone to slip into the heart of Moscow. The TB2 Recon, a $5 million asset, moved just 40 to 60 meters above the snow line, so low it shadow-skimmed rooftops as it mapped the exact engagement envelope of the Book M3 batteries ahead. For several minutes, the drone drifted undetected, collecting pulse widths and sweep intervals. Then the calm snapped. A Russian Panzer S-1 unit, valued at $14 million, and paired with an $8 million 1RS Tuan-1 targeting radar, locked onto the TB2 with a hard needle-sharp beam. The chase began instantly, a hunter stalking a single point of heat in a frozen sky. Ukraine responded with precision. 12 Warmate decoy drones, each costing $70,000, shot upward in staggered pairs, cutting directly through the Russian radar cone. Their onboard heaters flared like burning flares, flooding the Panzer's algorithms with chaotic signatures. For a moment, the sky looked like it was splitting, white sparks against a gray ceiling. Russia fired first 8 57 E-6E interceptors, each one worth $150,000, arcing in tight spirals. 4 Warmates vanished in bright puffs of